Hi Year 11. Today's lesson we're going to be looking again at language paper 1, but today we're going to be looking at question 5. So as we said yesterday, the paper is called Explorations in Creative Reading and Writing, and question 5 is when you have the opportunity to get creative. So as a starter, what I would like you to do please is to write down this new word that we're going to be using today. So I'd like you to write down the word desolate and its meaning. So desolate means uninhabited and giving an impression of bleak emptiness. On the slide there are some images to try and show you what desolate looks like, and there are some examples of the word desolate being used in sentences. So desolate kind of means dismal, bleak, barren, gloomy. Once you've written down the word and its meaning, I'd like you to have a go at making up a sentence of your own using the word. You might want to pause the PowerPoint now whilst you do that. So in our writing today, we're going to be using some colour imagery. What I'd like you to do now, please, is to see if you can come up with any other alternative words for the three colours on the slide. So colours for different words for green, for white and for grey. If you're really struggling, the next slide has got some ideas. Okay, so I've chosen three. So instead of writing green, I might write pistachio or emerald or olive. Instead of white, I might write cotton, pearl or ivory. And instead of grey, I might write slate, dove or smoke. So section B of your language paper 1, question 5. You've got a choice, and we're going to look at what that choice is in a little bit more detail in a minute. But for this section, you need to spend about 45 minutes on your writing. You should write in full sentences, and although you all don't like doing it, you really need to plan your answer, just because then it gives you more idea of what you're going to write. And if you can, it's good to leave a little bit of time at the end just to check your work through and make sure that you've got everything right, everything where you want it to be. This paper is worth 50% of your full mark for this paper. So you need to make it count. You need to be writing quite a bit for this and show off your creativity. You've been doing creative writing now for years and you're good at it. So this is your chance to do it. So when I was saying that you've got a choice, this is where the choice comes in. So you can either write a story based on an image. In this case, it's a foggy moor. Or you can write a description suggested by this image. So I'd like you just to spend a minute thinking about which question you would find perhaps the more easy to write about. So there isn't just one way to do this. It's about how you write and what skills you show. And it's good to have an interesting, original and exciting idea because that will help you to write more. Here's the image in a little bit more detail now. So I want you to be thinking about what you can see, what else might be there, what colour imagery you could talk about. So for today's lesson, we're going to think about the second choice, using the image to write a description. So I'd like you now just to go back to the picture we looked at before, and I'd like you to be thinking about those ideas. What can you see? What colour imagery could you use? What sensory language? What can you see, hear, smell, touch, taste if you were standing there on that moor? So on this slide, this gives you a little bit more detail about doing that. So pause the PowerPoint now and have a go at writing down your ideas. So back to planning. I think it's really important to plan when you're writing because you can start off and think you know exactly what you're going to do, and you might have the first few sentences or the first paragraph will go really well, and then you kind of get stuck because you've not planned it, you've not thought about what you're going to do. So planning is essential because it helps you know where you're going with your writing and how you're going to get there. It plans so that you can have language devices in, which is what you'll be marked on. You organise your writing, and also it helps you to calm and focus yourself because you know what you're going to be doing. You don't have that panic about, I don't know what to write next. So planning is key. It doesn't matter so much how much you write, it's about the quality of your writing. So some people could write 5 pages and not get many marks because the quality of their writing is not great. So it's more important to write good quality. So our second step then, we've had a look at the image, we've thought about some ideas. Our second step now is to think about vocabulary. So there are 4 words on the screen. What I would like you to do now, please, is pause the PowerPoint and I'd like you to write down these words and their meanings. So we've got forlorn, which is another word for hopeless, miserable or unhappy. Melancholy, another word for sad, depressed or dejected. Brittle, which can have 2 different types of meaning really. It can mean fragile or frail, but it can also mean cold. If somebody's unwelcoming, you could describe them as brittle. And malicious, which is another word for spiteful, bitter and hostile. So pause the PowerPoint, write those words down and their meanings. Now you've got these words and their meanings, I'd like you to write a sentence which includes each of these words. So again, pause the PowerPoint and try and write a sentence that includes each of those 4 words. And here are some examples. So if you were struggling to do the sentences on your own, you could write down these examples now. So our next step is to think about language devices. So we talk about these all the time in school. We talk about similes and metaphors, we talk about personification. What I'd like you to do, please, is have a go at writing down what you think these terms mean. What is colour imagery? What is sensory language? Write down what you think they are. So pause the PowerPoint again and write these down with their meanings. Purple pen now. So here are the answers. Check what you wrote and check the answers that are on the screen now. And in purple pen, add in any more information that you didn't get when you were doing it on your own, or just give them a tick if you got it right. So back to our example question. There's the image we've been looking at. So the question is to write a description suggested by this picture. I've chosen this option rather than the story because I think this is slightly easier to get lots of marks for and to plan. So you get 24 marks for your content and organisation, 16 marks for spelling and grammar. So that's 40 in total, and as I said at the start, you need to be spending about 45 minutes on this question. So here's a plan, and on the left hand side of the diagonal line we've got some ideas about the structure. So we've got a beginning, a middle and an end. So even though this is not a story, it's a description, what I would like you to do, please, is think about what we're going to zoom in on first. So I thought about zooming in on the tree. So the language device I want to talk about in this is personification. So as we know from earlier, personification is where we give something that's not living features. So here we've got the forlorn tree waved desperately in the wind. We know trees can't wave. And under the malicious sky, the tree clung to the earth. Trees can't cling, but it's a good language device to use. So once I've written about the tree, I'm going to include some colour imagery there. I'm going to describe what it looks like. I'm then going to talk about the surrounding area. I might even introduce a character. It could be someone walking down the path. So I'm going to use a simile here, and I'm going to use a sentence from earlier. The brittle ice cracked under her feet with every step. So to carry that on with a simile, I might compare the path to something else. I might compare the scenery to something else. And then once I've done that, the end of my description, I'm going to describe the weather in more detail. And I'm going to try and include some sensory language here. So the sentence from earlier was, a melancholy sound whistled around the moorland. We've already got some ideas about sensory language there, what we can hear. I might then go on to talk about what I can smell perhaps, but I'm going to be describing the weather. So look back at the picture and think about what you might write about there. Now we've got our plan, we've built up, we've got our colour imagery, we've got our sentence starters, we've got our language devices, it's time to write. So here I've got 3 sentence starters for the beginning, the middle and the end of our description. Keep checking back with your plan, but what I would like you to do now is to pause the PowerPoint, and I'd like you to spend 15 to 20 minutes having a go at writing up your answer to question 5.